Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, we have two awesome guests. It's a two for one today here at Salty Ginger Talk. We're very excited about this. Uh, you will recognize one of our guests, Allie Dalsimer. She was on last year. She's written a book called You Don't Have to Be Fabulous Every Day. She ran for Congress. She had a very interesting life and was very good about sharing what she'd learned and her thoughts on how to make changes and how to approach with all of the different things that she's had to deal with in her life. She started a podcast with her son, who is a professional actor and writer and producer and super good guy. His name is Kyle Dalsimer. And we're going to talk to them today because their podcast is called So What's Your Process? And they do interviews much like we do, but with people in creative fields to talk about how they prepare and how they generate the ideas and the products that they generate. So super fascinating. We're very excited to have them on. You're going to love them. You're going to want to watch their podcast as well because it's super interesting and you can learn a lot about how to think differently and challenge yourself by watching their podcast. So without further ado, let's bring Allie and Kyle on now. All right. So Allie and Kyle, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk.
Thank you so much, Joe. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those that are regulars on the channel, you'll recognize Allie because she was on our podcast last year. Loved hearing about her story. It was very interesting how things kind of worked out for her, including a run for Congress. Author, speaker. And if you recall our conversation, she had talked about starting up a podcast with her son, Kyle, who has joined us on this episode as well. And so, we're fortunate on Salty Ginger Talk. We tend to attract really high caliber people. So it's always worth having them come back on and talking to them about various things. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the podcast that Allie and Kyle have started together. It's called So What's Your Process? And from the episodes I watched and the descriptions that I saw, you interview people who are in creative endeavors, and covers a wide variety of creativity. There is no limit to it from what I could see. And you kind of talk to them about how that whole thing works. So super, super interesting because Kyle, just as a refresher for you, our podcast is about trying to get people to live an authentic life. That's it. That's all I care about. Just do something that you really care about and do it the best possible way that you can. And if you do that, you're going to wind up in a really good spot and generally be pretty happy. Now, I can't tell you what that is because I'm not you. If that's work, if that's a personal relationship, if that's rock climbing, I don't know what it is, but you get to do whatever it is that's important to you, but you're really not going to be happy until you get after it. So I think it fits really well with what you guys are trying to do. So you're going to get a little bit indoctrinated here, Kyle, because we've already heard Allie's story. I would love it if you could kind of tell us broad strokes about your life up to this point. How did you start out? How have you worked your way to the point you're at now? And then we'll kind of use that as the jumping off point to go into your podcast. So the floor is yours. Tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, wow, where to start? Well, I guess I can start with I was raised by a great mom. Look at that. But I grew up, with my mom and with my sister, my late dad, and I found a lot of excitement in telling stories always as a kid, and performing, and I performed little shows in the living room. When I got into sports, I was always thinking about like the performance of the game, things like that, and I ended up finding acting and finding musical theater specifically as a passion for myself, which led to going to school, studying musical theater, training. And then during the pandemic, I ended up leaving school and working for my mom's campaign when she ran for office, just because we saw so much, obviously horrible things going on during the pandemic and trying to make the world a better place. And that ended up working out really well for me because I happened to be back in my hometown during that time and being around for auditions for a local show, which ended up becoming my professional debut. Um, I did that show for a few months and then I moved to New York. And over the last few years, I have performed all across the country, off Broadway, major cities around the United States. I also recently wrote and directed my first short film, which is a film called The Call, which is hitting the film festival circuit this year. So we're excited to see what happens with that. And yeah, in the last year, we decided to start this podcast together. So a lot of feet, or a lot of fingers, and a lot of different pies, I guess. Trying to do a lot of different creative things all at once.
Wow. So there's so much interesting stuff to talk about there. And I apologize, Allie, because we'll bring you back in here, but I have a lot of questions for Kyle based on what he
Yeah,
just
yeah,
said.
Mom.
So,
Slow your roll. You can wait for a bit, Mom. Let's just let it be me for a
Hey, I
second.
love
Let's
listening to you. I'm all good.
oh, that's awesome. So you talked about performing. When you performed skits and things, I think I just filled in a blank there that shouldn't have been filled in. What were these home performances that you did? Were you singing? Were you acting? How did this come about?
It was all of the above. We would watch American Idol on the weeknights, and on the commercial breaks, I would do my audition for American Idol as like a 7, 8 year old, and audition for my family standing in front of the TV while we have the Nissan commercial muted in the background. And then coming up with skits, like making up stories, like playing, just always trying to find a way to entertain. I think it's always been about entertaining for me.
Mm. What sports did you play?
Yeah, I played a few sports. So I played baseball, I played football, I ran track, I pole vaulted, which were all a lot of fun. A lot of those did not end up. I ended up having to stop playing football after a pretty bad concussion, which led to me deciding that I wanted to be a performer.
And you have a black
Funny
belt
enough.
in Taekwondo.
I do also have a black belt in Taekwondo. I sometimes forget about that, but yes, I got my black belt when I was 11 years old, and yeah, and I did all of those. Football ended with the concussion. I broke my elbow doing a show, so that ended my pole vaulting career, unfortunately, because you need to like lock your elbow to do that vault, and I was not physically able to do that anymore, unfortunately. So. All roads ended up leading to performing, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason I ask about all those, one of the things I see from a lot of people, and you seem to have either this comes to you naturally and you've enhanced that skill, or you've developed a skill to put yourself in positions where you don't know how things are going to turn out, and you can be judged and or I don't know if laughed at is the right word, but you're putting yourself in situations where other people feel comfortable making judgments about you. Is that something that came naturally to you, or is that something that you developed over time, or is it a little of both?
That's so interesting. I'd actually never thought about it like that. I think I think I've always enjoyed being the center of attention. Like as a kid, even up until now, I have to admit. But I I think obviously you do have that, and there is that risk, and there is that fear of judgment, and insecurity, and I've obviously gotten that over my life, growing up, and then even as a professional performing, you never know if people are going to hate your work, you never know if people are gonna quote unquote get it, you never know if you're gonna do your work to your best capabilities. And I definitely used to get, I had growing up, I had, stage fright and all those things where I would get nervous before I do the show, but I would do it. And now it's just excitement for me. And I kind of go into everything knowing that I'm going to do my best work, and that's all that's in my power. I always find that I learn new things when I'm preparing for new characters. And one character that I worked on a couple years ago led me down the path of studying Stoicism in preparation for that role. And some of those ideas, specifically like controlling what's within your influence and not allowing yourself to be affected by things that you have no control over, have really stuck with me and continued to be a beacon for me throughout my life and career.
Man, I love that. So I've read quite a bit of Stoicism stuff too. I'm not Ryan Holiday, who's built their life around
Right,
Stoicism.
right. Yeah.
However,
You're not
I
sleeping on the kitchen floor. Just
exactly
to like know what it's like to have an uncomfortable night.
right, walking around in my loincloth in the minus temperatures, right? Not I'm not doing
Exactly.
I'm not quite at that level of stoicism for sure. However, I do think there's some value in that. And I found, and so first, I should have said this to start with. Congratulations on finding your way professionally in a field that's very difficult to get paid to do. That is super impressive, especially for it's for anyone, but especially for a guy your age. So that's just super impressive. I would argue
Thanks.
that it's your authenticity that has probably gotten you there because it's very easy for me when you talk to see that you're saying exactly what's on your mind. And I think that's a skill that a lot of people lack. And it's awesome, especially like you're actually getting paid to do the opposite. You're getting paid to be something you're not and learn how to be that in a convincing way. But I would bet it's your authenticity that does that. But I was in those situations as an athlete. I went through college on a baseball scholarship and I was the closer for the last 2 years I played. And as you know, as a baseball player, that's the guy that
Yeah.
goes in when things are really tight. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's either all or nothing. You either save the game or you lose the game. There's no third option. So everybody loves you or you walk to the bus all by yourself. And I was playing Division 1, so there's probably 3,000 people at some of the games I was, well, and they either all wanted you to succeed at home or they all wanted you to fail on the road.
Yeah.
And I learned, I didn't know it at the time, but I learned from those experiences that the world doesn't come to an end simply because you don't get the outcome that you were trying to get. And you get to go again. You get to try again at some point. And so that was the reason
Hmm.
I was kind of digging on. You seem to, the way you described it, be very comfortable putting yourself in those situations over and over and over again. And one, I wanted to point that out to the audience. And two, I just wanted to commend you for having that mindset about you because it's going to take you really far in life if you can continue to either be fearless or overcome those fears when they do pop up. There's two versions of it, right? But they're both super useful. And I think that's
Yeah.
awesome that you're
I
doing
will.
that.
I appreciate that, and I will say there's a couple things that you said in there that were interesting. That sparked my mind. The first one about that. It definitely is. With that idea of like either everyone's going to love you or it's going to be the lonely walk. It's very much the same in I tell people that being a professional actor means being a professional auditioner. Because we are auditioning for dozens, sometimes hundreds of things a year, and the offer rate, even at the highest level, is, 5%, 3%, 1% of the things that you do. It really is not. You're not getting everything that you audition for. And I just actually, I just had a really bad audition, very recently that like it really it was one of those. It was one of those. I like walked to the bus alone afterwards. I was walking back and I was like, oh, I was like, that was not my best work. But it was like, okay, you know what? The world didn't end. The world didn't end. There will be another one. There's already another one in the works. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I also something that you said about the authenticity and how it's almost the opposite of what I do. I always tell people because I think people's first thought is like, oh, acting is like pretending, acting is lying, like you're lying. And I'd say, no, 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 no. Acting is telling the truth. You're just not necessarily telling your truth.
Mm.
You're telling that character's truth. And I think that that's the biggest pitfall for young actors, honestly, is like, oh, I'm pretending, I'm pretending. It's like you're not pretending, you're just telling you're living someone else's truth.
You're like the interpreter, right? That's the way I think about actors. You're the
Yes.
interpreter of a story, and it's your job to tell that story in a way to convey the meanings, the emotions, the thoughts, whatever it is that you're trying to convey in a way that's honest and truthful to the story itself, but compelling for the audience. That's the way I think
Yeah.
about acting.
Yeah. And you see that with plays and theater and things where, there's lots of productions over the years, especially a play that's been around for a long time. You can see the same show 5 different times over the course of 20 years and see each one of those actors playing that lead role have a completely different interpretation. It'll be a completely, it's same words, same story, but a completely different story because that actor has interpreted the text and interpreted how they should carry that character differently.
That's awesome. And like, I think even we as people experience that. I can tell you, like, the film American Beauty, I watched that
Mm.
movie in my 20s and I didn't like it very much. And then I watched it again in my 40s and I loved it the second time I watched it. But I was clearly at a very different point in my life in my 40s than I was in my 20s. So maybe I missed the messages. Maybe I wasn't mature enough or thoughtful enough to pick up the messages. Maybe they just resonated differently
It
when I
just
picked them up.
wasn't the right story for you at that
Right,
time, and
right.
now it's hitting you. Yeah.
But that's what I love about creativity is, and that creativity can be in so many different ways. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Like I love to golf. And so like you're a professional actor. It's very obvious that you are in a field that's known for its creativity, right? That's kind of what people associate with acting, with singing, with performing. There is tons of creativity in golf, and it's one of the things that I love about golf. I can play the same course 2 different days, and let's say one day it's 85 degrees and no wind, and the next day it's 65 degrees with a 10-mile-an-hour wind. I'm going to take a very different approach to each shot that I take on that course, and I've got to think my way around it. Golf is funny because it's one the only sport you play where you try to play as little of it as possible, right?
Right.
So less strokes is better in golf, and like in baseball, I want to hit more, I want to all that stuff, but um, there's creativity in that, and it's a great creative outlet for me. And I think it's really important if people want to continue to grow throughout their lives that they have to continue to find ways to express their creativity. Like Ali, I know you wrote your book. I do have a question for you though. Is it okay if I am fabulous every day?
Absolutely. Actually, if you look into the book, that's actually the underlying message.
Yeah,
It's more you don't have to pretend to be fabulous every day because we're
yeah,
fabulous all the time.
that's right. That's the way I think about it. I'm doing the best I can, and that's really all you can do
Hmm.
from day to day. And the days you're not, you got to be honest with yourself that you've
Got to
got
be
more in
honest.
you, and it's time to step up and bring your best
Or
for
grace yourself a
everything.
little patience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So, how do you? I'm curious about. I've heard a lot uh, tangentially. I don't know anyone that's a professional actor, but I've heard a lot through the grapevine, and I'm 54, and I read a lot and listen to a lot of stuff. How do you prepare for characters? How do you do research
Ooh.
on characters to feel like, okay, I'm ready for this? How do you do that? That's got to be a super interesting process.
Yeah, so I'll start it by saying every actor is different. And there are in modern Western acting in the acting that you see in Hollywood movies and Broadway stages and things like that. There's there's kind of three schools of thought in acting. With that said, there's so many variations on them. There's so many people who pick and pull. There's different things. And for me personally, not only is every actor different, for me, every role is different.
Mm,
But it all comes down to two things, I think, for me, and that is for my personal process is building myself from the outside in and then doing so much research and depth that I feel like I could answer any question that was asked of me. So, for example, I did a couple years ago, I did the stage adaptation of American Psycho. Um, and to prepare for that, I put on about 15 pounds of lean muscle because that character is hyper fixated on his appearance, on his looks. He's, in the book, he takes steroids and and I didn't go that far, obviously, but I did put on the lean muscle and got very, very into looking at my physical appearance and making sure that I carried myself in that way.
Did you
And the
play the
polar
Patrick?
opposite.
Did you
I
play the
did. I
Patrick
played the
Bateman
Patrick
role?
Bateman character. I
Okay, so you had the
did.
lead in that. Yeah.
Yes. So I played that character, and so it was the body and it was the voice for that one. So I had to get the body, and then over time I was also working on I was working on finding where the voice sat because obviously you're not trying to mimic what Christian Bale did with it, but you want to get the idea of the character and find it. And my voice naturally sits very high. You can hear it. This is where I naturally speak. But you don't want to go, "Hi, I'm Patrick Bateman." It's not scary. It's not intimidating. It's not good. So I had to figure out how to let it sit lower, and then over time it starts to flow a little bit, and you find that there's a little bit of like a legato-ness to it, and there's almost a little bit of a growl, and then you get to the end of words and it starts to close off, and then there's Patrick Bateman, right? And
Yep.
so that was the biggest thing for me. And then outside of that was just a ton of research on serial killers, on reading, obviously reading the book, watching the film are the baseline. But then studying different mental disorders, understanding sort of copycat killers and things that would be inspirations to him. When I got my dressing room for that show, I plastered quotes from serial killers across my walls of my dressing room. I drew these like very graphic and scary drawings of like just like scribbled out murders and things, and I plastered them on my walls just so that I was around this negative and dark space, so that I could really spend time and sit down in my dressing room half an hour before the show and just be surrounded by this energy of everything I was trying to embody. And I would sit there and I would listen to my playlist that I made, which is about an hour and a half of music that ranged from Silent Eyes by Hall and Oates to like actual music from that like serial killers and like murderers had like recorded in studios, to get in my headspace. And I lifted my weights and I did all this stuff, and it was very outside in. It was very having all of those external things sort of like come onto me, and I got to build the character in that way.
Wow, that's really cool. I hope there was a heavy dose of hip to be square in your preparation.
Oh yes. Oh yes, there was. There was. And I'll tell you what, that song plays a huge role in the stage adaptation.
Really?
He's got about a page long monologue near the end of Act One about the very similar to the movie, about how Hip to Be Square is one of the most important pieces in musical history. And it's great. It's so absurd. If it wasn't terrifying, it would be absurd and hilarious. I always say that American Psycho is one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah, well, it's, right, wrong, or indifferent. I know my share of people that work or have worked in the investment banking world, and I would say American Psycho is only slightly hyperbolic. I'm just,
I
I'm
would
just,
I would
I'm
completely
just
agree.
saying.
I would completely agree. Well, I actually, I in preparation, I like listen to interviews and like people like who are like in that world. And I also listened to Christian Bale talk about the role and different things, and he actually spent time like with investment bankers after the show, or after he did the film, and they love Patrick Bateman. He's a hero to them. Like a lot of those guys in that Wall Street world, they're like, no, Patrick Bateman's awesome, and like not ironically. And so I'm like, okay, cool, got it. All right, this is. I always say that the difference between Patrick and Paul in that movie, and in that story, who I won't spoil what happens if anyone hasn't seen the movie 25 years after it came out. The only difference between them, the only difference is that Patrick kills people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I love it. Yeah, that's so interesting that you go to all of that work to be as prepared as possible to tell that story in the best way you can. And so that's an interesting one too. I would think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would think you weren't trying to recreate Christian Bale's performance. I'm sure you took quite a bit from his performance and incorporated it into your interpretation. But I would think you were trying to tell that story in your way. Is that the way you approached it?
Yeah, I always tell people that when you're doing an adaptation of a famous thing, or even if you're doing a show that, had a very like famous and long running Broadway run, and now it's come to the regional world or whatever, you can, and I told this to a student group that I was speaking to a while ago. And I am not as good at being Christian Bale as Christian Bale is, you know, because no one is because he's Christian Bale. But there's also no one who's as good as being Kyle Dalsimer as Kyle Dalsimer.
Exactly.
So I look at those kinds of things, other performances of a role, if there's a TV show or a movie or like another adaptation or someone else who's performed the role in the past. I look at those as resources and not as roadmaps. They are things that I can pull things from if I need, but they're not things that I want to lead my work. I think that's because no one wants to see you come and do an impression. There's really amazing, people who do, like who do like Michael Jackson impressions and like Elvis Presley, like who do that stuff, and those guys are great. I'm not one of those people, and I don't want to be one of those people.
Yeah.
I want people to, I want to do my performance and be Kyle's version of this character.
I love that. And some of this is a little bit self-serving. So just to share a personal anecdote, I recently auditioned for the lead singer role in a band, and
Oh,
it's a cover band. They decided to go with a female singer, but they liked me, and the guy that runs the band is actually starting a side project, so I'm going to be the lead singer in that band. And what I have found myself fighting the urge to kind of recreate what I've, because it's all covered too. We don't write any original music as of now, but I fight the urge not to try to sound like whoever we're performing, because that was their version of that song,
right.
and I need to learn to do my version of that, and I'm still learning to kind of let go of where I've anchored my thoughts on that performance and just do it my way. And I'm getting better
Exactly.
at it, but I've got a ways to go. I'll tell you right now, I got a ways to go.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so cool. And a super exciting thing to be doing as well. I think I definitely think that that's spot on though. You gotta do your version of it, and you gotta do it the way that feels natural to you. And if there's overlap, there's overlap. And if you do things something different, then it's yours.
Yeah, very cool. And look, that's way outside my comfort zone. Everything I do is kind of driven and structured, and like golf is about as creative as I've been in the last 25 years. I used to perform when I was a kid, but it's a good outlet for me, and it's good to push myself into places I'm not as comfortable as, at 54. There's a lot of things that I've got a lot of experience at. I could keep doing those over and over again, but how is that growing me as a person? So I'm intentionally putting myself in situations where I've got to work and fight and struggle and learn so I can try to get better as a person. So I appreciate coming from someone that does this for a living, hearing how you approach it, because that's super helpful for me. So I appreciate you sharing it with me and with our audience.
Yeah, of course.
And for the audience, I just want to reiterate something that Kyle said earlier. So, would you sign up for, let's just say you're an accountant, right? You don't get to be right as an accountant 3% of the time and keep your job. You don't get to be right 3% of the time as a social studies teacher and keep your job. That business is filled with people telling you, no, that's not what we're looking for. No, you're not good enough. No, you're not what we're looking for. And I think there's a real lesson to be learned from people that do that for a living on how they approach those. Because, like, you can't just mail in the audition. You're going to prepare, like, hey, I want this role, or I wouldn't be auditioning for it. And I'm going to prepare like I'm getting the role. And way more often than not, you don't get it. And you've got to learn that lesson. I'm talking to the audience here, not Kyle. He's learned that lesson. That's why he's being successful, because he keeps going back. You've got to learn that lesson that not everything is going to go the way you want it to. And there's feedback that you can take from those outcomes that you get that you don't want. If you're going to be successful, you've got to use that feedback in an unemotional way and say, how do I get better so that I get a different result the next time that I try? So I think there's so much value in you sharing your experiences and your process with our audience. But this translates, guys, directly to your lives. It translates directly to your lives if you're willing to learn the lesson and continue to put yourself in positions where you're not sure if you're going to succeed or not. That's what successful people do. So, for what it's worth, I really appreciate you taking all the time and walking us through that.
Of
Super helpful.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. So let's pivot now to what made you two decide, you know what, we should put our own podcast together. How talk us through how that went with the two of you, and mother and son too. Like there's a dynamic there that sometimes is probably awesome and sometimes is probably not awesome. How does that work?
Oh yeah, hey
Well,
mom, welcome
first,
back.
first, I really enjoyed this latest episode of So, What's Your Process?
This
Which
kind
is
of was,
exactly what
wasn't
you've
it?
just done is walk people through Kyle's creative process. And it's fascinating. And he's right in that everybody has a different process. So, but it really
And
is.
that's what
It's
our show's all
interesting.
about.
It is. It is. It is. And it came about actually because I kept being asked, what's it like to be an author? What does my day look like? Where do I come up with the ideas? How do you go about, doing whatever it is that I'm doing? And it's no secret because I'm living the life and I'm like, well, it's not that big a deal. You just do X, Y, Z and whatever. And then Kyle was talking to me about what was it? It was something to do with the difference between stage acting and film acting and how he prepares for some roles. And, you know, I realized, I really enjoy that as well. But first, what I did was approached both my kids with the idea, and I was like, listen, I've been encouraged to do a podcast. I haven't had an idea, but I've got this idea. What do you think? My daughter was like, oh, that's a great idea. And that was to interview authors about their creative process, like how they go about doing that. And then I, uh, I pitched it to Kyle, and he was like, actually, you said, hear me out.
Yeah, and I
And
would.
in that moment, I knew what he was going to say. And he said, let's expand it to all creatives. And I was like, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's when I was starting to think
and let
about the
me in on it.
conversation. Let me in on it. Yeah, you were like, I want to do this with you.
I was like,
You're like,
let's
I
do
know
it
lots of
together.
people.
I was
Yeah,
like, I've got famous adjacent friends. Let's do it.
exactly. Exactly. And yeah, and I'll be honest, Joe, and you know what, Kyle, if you think I'm, full of BS here, you just spit that on out. But we don't really have down moments. Like we collaborate really easily. We don't actually collaborate. It's weird. So, like when we do this, we each come up with our ideas, and it's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about asking so and so," and the other person will be like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's fine." We've each had one person we're like, "No, I don't think so," and we've had reasons. We've said, "Well, this is my reason." It's like, "Oh, okay,"
Mhm.
and we don't coordinate. We come up with our questions, or our thoughts separately. We do our own little research, and Kyle half the time shows up with a blank piece of paper and just jots questions as
Not
as he
half the
listens.
time. Leave that. Okay,
Okay.
that's propaganda.
Well, you come up with a
No,
couple
that's
questions, and I have
happened. That's happened twice where I didn't have any questions going in, but I always have at
going
least
in.
a few in the back burner.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I have a few. We have starter questions. We don't coordinate our questions at all. And I think there's been one time where we actually
One time.
ended up asking the same question, because we just have different ways of thinking, and I don't know, we get along well, and the show goes well, and we play to our strengths. I handle kind of the logistic stuff, and he handles all the computer techie stuff that I don't
Yeah.
do.
Well, I'll just say, just adding on that, the one of like the little headlines for the show that we had, which I don't think we realized how right it was, because we picked it out before we had our even first interview,
Right, on that
was
yellow
was
graphic.
one
Yeah.
show, two perspectives.
Right.
And the fact is, we both come at this completely differently. Our questions, not only do we never have overlap in our questions despite never speaking before, like Ali said, we bring our own guests. We get the thumbs up from the other person, but we're like, hey, this is my guest that I'm bringing on. This is your guest we're bringing on. And then we bring our own questions, and they almost never overlap because we look at creativity from completely different lenses, and we look at process from different lenses. I'm often really interested in the development of their journey and of specifics of the intricacies of how they go about creating something. And Ali does a completely different look and is a lot more of a macro scale, and looks at it kind of like on a person to global standpoint, I would say. And it really, I think, makes for an interesting listen because we both have so many thoughts and curiosities about our guests, but our thoughts and curiosities are often from completely different angles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we also tend to ask questions that people don't expect. We were going back through and watching the videos, and I think in every single episode, someone's like, "Oh, that's a good question," or "Ah, that's a question I haven't been asked before." It was like,
I've got
"Oh, cool."
I can give you a little scoop. I'm putting together a little montage of all the times people go, "That's a good question," or "Oh, I hadn't thought about that," or things like that. And we're gonna put it out. And right now that video is about 2.5 minutes of just back to back people saying
Is it
that,
really?
just from season one. So I think I'm gonna wait until we wrap up season two to put that out and just have a fun little video for that.
I love that. Do you guys see commonalities across your guests in their processes, or uh, do you find that they're mostly different in their approach?
I think there's a lot more differences than
Yeah.
commonalities. I mean, there's some big scale commonalities, but they're really different. Like even talking to actors, Kyle talked about building, doing a lot of research and building his character from the outside in. But we've talked with people who are like, I put on the dress or I put on the glasses and that's
Hmm.
it. I'm in
Yeah.
character. Or people who are like, no, I don't research. I just approach the script and I
Hmm.
read it, over and over and over until I
Hmm.
get the script and they don't do any extra. So it's completely different. And there have been a few commonalities, but it's a lot more differences.
Yeah, it's just especially with our people that you would think would have commonality, our actors, our
Authors.
authors, our, things like that is very much everyone seems to have different processes. And when we find those little overlap moments, it's almost like a fun little Easter egg for us. And we're like, oh wow, that's so cool. Or oh, that reminds us of something that our friend from episode three said. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's always fun when that happens.
Hmm.
How do you guys find your guests? Are they not there? Are they just people you know, or do you have another avenue to find people to come on?
It's a mix, right? Well, I mean,
Hmm.
I think that a lot of
Well,
our
we
guests
started
are,
with people we
yeah,
knew
yeah.
or had communications with, but it's really broadened out. I mean, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of them are starting out were colleagues or friends of friends. People that we've met along the way, being in creative fields. As an actor and a filmmaker, I've been very fortunate to make friends and along the way people who've gone on to be on Broadway, like do major film and TV projects, to do movies, things like that. And then obviously Ali with authors, so many very successful authors that she's met with and
And also
collaborated along the way. Yeah,
some of the other things I've been doing as well. I've met several people through some of the
yeah,
other
public speaking and
the
everything. Yeah.
speaking and the interviewing and stuff. So,
Yeah, but for the ones that we didn't know before, those have actually been really fascinating because we kind of know to some degree what we're getting with the people that, maybe if it's my guest, someone who I've known but Allie's never met, maybe she doesn't exactly know what the vibe is going in and vice versa. But when it's someone that neither of us have met before and it's someone that, either reached out to us or we found them, our very first guest on the show for episode one is a filmmaker named Sam Henderson, who we just happened to see his film when it came to play at the DC International Short Film Festival,
yeah. Yep. I
and
asked
we
him a
invited him on the
question in the
show.
talk
Yeah,
back, and then we went over and talked with him afterwards.
yeah, and that's gone on to be our best performing episode yet, and Sam's actually currently on the Oscar shortlist for best short film of the year for the
Yeah.
Academy Awards
Wow.
for his film that we saw. So,
Yeah.
those kinds of things where it just
Well, and Robert Blake
yeah,
Whitehill is up for an NCAA
yes, yeah, an NCAA P Image Award.
Image Award
Yeah,
for the collaborative for the
yes.
screenwriting that he did on Robert Smalls.
Hmm.
So yeah, two
Which
award nominee
which also
potentials. So is
Sam's film
Sam.
is
Yep,
also, so
he
we've
is.
got two people who are
I know.
nominated
It's
for
exciting.
NCAAP
We're so adjacent to the
Image
awards.
Awards. We are.
We're award adjacent.
We're award adjacent.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
can
been
tell
cool.
from my perspective, the where I've learned the most and where I think the best conversations for my podcast have come from have been from people who I don't know, who are
Yeah.
new, but are willing to come on and be honest and which is like everybody. That's the thing that is so surprising to me about my podcast is people are so willing to share uh really difficult things sometimes and really personal thing sometimes. And I take the responsibility of kind of providing a platform for that very seriously. And I'm not judgmental in any way. It's not my place to say you did good or bad, you did right or wrong. It just is what it is. And I love hearing that from people's perspective. Have you found that people are open and honest with you, or does it do you have to pull things out of them? Are they hesitant at first? How's that experience been interviewing guests?
I think it depends sometimes, right? Um,
Yeah, I think what I have noticed is that people who have more experience interacting with people, people who have interview experience or who are in the more performing arts arenas, tend to be more forthcoming and more comfortable speaking. And those who are less experienced with it or who are in creative endeavors where they're perhaps not as public facing,
mhm.
they're a little less hesitant. We had one guest who I really felt like this person wasn't convinced people would be interested in their story.
Mm,
So it was a little bit pulling out. And of course, people would be very interested, and we were able to
Yeah.
pull some good things out. But I think overall, we, like you, provide a safe space, and there's no right or wrong answers. We talk to them briefly ahead of time and let them know, there's no wrong answer, and the shows are taped. So, if you say
Yeah.
something that you just like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that, we will, we meeting Kyle will cut it out.
Yes.
And it's been a really rewarding experience. And I think the thing that I really like the best is how much, I don't know if you feel the same, Kyle, but it's how much I've learned. Like I feel like
Mm.
I'm just learning so many interesting insights that I had never even thought about before. One of the people we interviewed sings. Can I talk about specific people, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the people that we interviewed sings opera. And just that perspective of how that person approaches the whole creative process compared to we also interviewed a person who does pottery, but she does it in sort of the traditional native style with like digging the clay from the earth and
mm.
firing it in a wood fire, like not a kiln, but an actual, she builds a fire with wood. And it was just like fascinating to talk with these people. And we would never have had those opportunities if we hadn't had this podcast.
Yes. I also just want to add in real quick, NAACP, not
Right.
NCAAP.
I knew
I
I
don't,
couldn't believe,
I don't know. I
yeah,
was
right.
like,
I'm like, wait, where's my
I
brain
was
on
like,
this
we're
one?
putting the C in the wrong
Yeah.
place. I was like, it took me a second, and I was like, it's like the math isn't
NAACP. There
mathing
you go.
there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
I was like, this is
I'm
this,
willing to
this is
bet
why you were so good for me during the campaign. I'm like queen of the malaprop.
You definitely had there's a word for it in politics. I forget what the word is now. When you just like
Let's
when you
see.
misspeak and you have
Uh,
like a flub word and
yeah,
you would accidentally say the
inevitably,
opposit of what you meant, and I would
inevitably.
be like, oh God.
She's
And I
done
have
it
to like
again.
butt in and be like, that's not what you meant, that's not what you meant, that's not what you meant.
No, and then I'd have to clarify it.
Yeah.
It's like what I actually
Well,
meant is the opposite of what I said.
and I think people take things too literally, like without getting into politics at all. Tim Walz during the vice presidential debate was trying to say, I've met the families of people who have lost children to school shooters.
Yeah.
But what he actually said was, I've met with school shooters.
Yeah,
Yeah, school
Anyone,
shooting victims. Yeah.
yeah, anyone with a
yeah,
brain in their head knows what he was trying to say, but people tried to use it like, see, he loves school shooters. No, he doesn't.
It's like,
Quit
come
Yeah.
on,
being
guys.
Well,
idiots.
the
No.
thing that I don't think people realize, and this is not a creative process, but it is a political process thing, is that when you are talking with someone, when you are running for office, you have no idea what they're going to ask you about. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to speak on 100 different issues and quickly, without preparation, without warning, be like, oh, what is my position on? You have to immediately
Mhm.
come up with it. Plus, the whole time that you're talking, you're thinking about the next question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Your brain is fully engaged in something completely different than your mouth is engaged in. And some people can do that really well, others not so well. And
Mhm.
even people like Tim Waltz, who is a consummate, political professional, will have a moment like that where he omits a couple words because his brain is going a bazillion miles an hour. And I don't
Yeah.
think that the general public realizes that. They don't realize, that's how I came up with the title for my book. You don't have to be fabulous every day because when you're running for office, you have to be on every day. You have to
Hmm.
be, you know, I am up, I am good, I am ignoring the fact that my house is flooded and my mother's dying, right? You're just on,
Hmm.
on, on, on. And I think people are very, very quick to judge on that because that also is a creative process, that whole thought process that goes on. So,
Yeah, it's so I've been speaking publicly since I was a kid. I'm just one of those people that usually winds up at the front of a group. I like being there, so like it's not a complaint in any way, shape, or form. I'd much rather control my own destiny than leave it in the hands of somebody else. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm fairly good at convincing people to listen to me and to let me speak for the group. And so I know what it's like to be standing in front of I did a press conference in Chicago one time and I had at least 50 cameras and microphones like right in front of me, like I was Michael Jordan talking after a Bulls game. I run grocery
Right.
stores, like that's not a normal thing to do for someone that runs grocery stores. And until you've been in that situation, you don't know what it's like. You don't know how your brain processes and all those things. And I'm very comfortable in those positions. But my point here is I've found that people that criticize me are almost always doing less than me or have never done what I've done.
mhm.
Meaning, if I'm out trying to run grocery stores in underserved communities, they're not doing anything in underserved communities, but they're sitting on the sideline lobbing water bottles onto the court while I'm trying to play defense. Like,
Mhm.
Right.
not super helpful. And I don't pay a lot of attention to those people. But I literally cannot think of a time where someone who was doing more than I was said, "Oh, you really shouldn't be doing that. You're doing that all wrong."
Hmm.
They
Yeah,
call me and say, "Hey, stick
Yeah.
with it. It might not be going the way you want it to right now, but
right.
you're trying to do the right thing here. So don't give
Yeah.
up. Like stick with it." I
Yeah.
always get words of encouragement from people that have either traveled the path I'm traveling or are doing more than I'm doing because they've been there, right? They know what that's like. And I think it's important for people to keep that in mind. You're going to get criticized no matter what you do.
Oh, yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. And like to Allie's point, you don't know where it's going to come from. I remember I'm in the food business. And so I went to a convention in Anaheim, California. I'll never forget it. It was a natural and organic food show. And there was a guy both days, all day long. He was out in front and he had a picket sign that said, "Stop selling organic honey." Because his argument was, you don't know where those bees have gone, and you can't say for sure that they've only pollinated organic flowers, and you can't call it organic honey if you can't control the bees. This guy was as serious as a heart attack about this issue. Like it meant a lot to him that organic honey was actually organic honey. Good luck reasoning with that guy on how honey works. Like
Wow.
it ain't gonna
All
happen.
right.
And there's all sorts of people like that in politics, in entertainment,
Well,
in
yes.
business. You don't know who you're dealing with, right? So,
And there's so many it's a popular term in sports, but I think it impacts every single field. There are so many armchair quarterbacks.
oh yeah,
There's so
Hmm.
many people sitting at home, not doing anything, who are telling you how you should do it differently. I remember, I obviously I have that in performing and in things like that. I know when we were working on the campaign, we had people who were very vocal about some of the things that they thought that Ali should be doing, or she should take a stronger stance on something, or why do you support this when you blah 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 blah. And I'm like, guys, I this is what are you doing to try and make the world a better place right now? It's like we're cannibalizing ourselves here, getting in the way of something good. And it's just it's such a silly thing, and I feel like people who, who talk and people who are about action really is a huge divide, and I wish that more people who have strong opinions would take that action and would put that excitement and that drive and determination. I respect your honey guy, because he at least he was out there protesting. He was trying to do something. He wasn't just, Twitter fingers like calling you slurs on the internet for supporting, organic honey that may or may not actually be organic, right?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, it's so good. And you're right. Like that was important to him, and he was doing what he felt was right, and he felt very strongly about the organic honey. And so, like, I didn't say a word to the guy. There was people that were calling him nuts and all the other stuff. I noticed him. Like
Yeah.
it struck me. It struck me that this guy had 2 days to spend protesting organic honey. So it is what it is.
Good on him. That guy doesn't sound like he'd be much fun at parties, but I gotta salute him a little bit.
Totally. Oh my gosh, that's so. I can respect him. Doesn't mean I want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
Those more than one thing can be true at the same time. That's exactly right. What has surprised you the most about your podcast? What has been like a moment where you're like, wow, I didn't expect that to be that way or that to happen? That might be two different answers. So if you both
How
have two
well
different
it's
things,
been
that's fine.
received.
Yeah.
I've been surprised
Yeah.
by how well it's been received. We've gotten so many people who really seem to enjoy it, and we're getting people, starting to reach out to us to ask if they can be on the show. And
Hmm.
I definitely thought it would be interesting. I thought people would like it. I thought we would build and grow, and we are slowly building and growing our audience. But I thought it'd be more slow than it is. Not that we're skyrocketing off after one season. Um, but it's actually been better received than I thought it would be, which is
Yeah.
great.
I mean, our impressions are really looking good and consistently doing well. The response from we've got regular viewers who
Yeah.
watch every episode. People we didn't. I can see when I'm looking through the analytics. I can see where our views are coming from.
Yep.
And I remember the first episode came out, and I was like, oh, okay, Brooklyn. That's probably one of my friends. Oh, we've got someone in like outside of Philadelphia. I've got a cousin there. Maybe that makes sense. But and then we started getting places that I was like, what do you mean we got 30 views in the last week from Shanghai? I was
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
was like, we've got. I
He
was like,
actually he actually texted me, and he was like, "Do you know anybody in, like, I don't remember where it was. It was like, do you know anybody in, like, I don't know. I don't actually
was it
remember where it was.
Indonesia? Was
Yeah,
the
Indonesia, something like that.
was
I
the
was like,
first international viewers
"No,
we
I
started having?
don't."
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, that was
yeah.
Yeah,
that
it's
was
So
really interesting.
that part's crazy, isn't it? Because our audience is international as well. And when we first started, it felt like, just kind of yelling into the void, like nobody was listening and blah, blah, blah. And we just today broke 15,000 subscribers. And
look at that.
Congratulations. That's
yeah, thanks.
awesome.
Wow.
And we're
Yeah.
over 100,000 views a month now. So starting from videos that got 2 views, 4 views, 6 views, and no
Wow.
subscribers, we're really pleased. And I think that's
Yeah.
because it's really important. The authenticity is really important to us. We want to have people that are willing to talk candidly about things that have gone wrong in their life and what they learned from them and how they applied those learnings to make their life happier, more fulfilling, more productive post experience. And I think that resonates with everyone because literally every single person, regardless of where you live, regardless of what language you speak, regardless of what religion you practice, regardless of your political views, has experienced what I just described. And it's good to know that other people are going through the same thing that you're going through and they can relate to it. And
Yeah,
so
it's
I love,
universal.
yeah. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing and the fact that you expanded it to all creative uh, genres, let's say.
Hmm.
Um, which of the folks that have been on your podcast, which one was a surprising genre that you wouldn't have expected when you started the podcast? Like, Who was the one where you're like, wow, I didn't really think about creativity in that particular field, but this is pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the potter the pottery
Yeah.
person that you mentioned for sure, but I will say we had no intentions on this. I have a friend who I went to high school with who throughout high school became a celebrity photographer. So he would miss school one day and he'd come back. I'd be like I was like, "Where's Abu?" And then I'd check social media and it's like, oh, he just did photos for Drake when Drake came through DC to do to at like 17 years old.
Hmm.
He's doing this and he did. He's a friend of mine, and we had him come over to do the promo photos for the show, the ones that are on our social medias and everything like that. And as we were there, I was like, we should have you on the show.
Yeah.
Because he is an
Because the whole
artist with
thing
his
with like the
camera.
way he was setting it up and the way he was
Mhm.
talking, it was just fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. So we ended up getting him on the show, and he's gonna be, I believe, he's a guest for this season,
Yeah,
this
I think
this
he's in
season
season
two.
two. Yeah, and you know what
And
was really interesting about that for me? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
go for
Um,
it.
okay, but
I'm
he
used
also
to it.
I know you are. He also did the shots for my campaign, if you'll
Hmm.
recall. Um,
Yeah.
but um, but I remember because I do the pre-coordination stuff, and he was like, I don't know, like who's going to be interested in hearing this? Like nobody, like who's going to be interested in like he didn't think he had a creative process, and I think we surprised him just by asking him questions and have, I mean, what do you think, Kyle? I really felt like he was
I think
surprised, but he was like, wow, okay, this is like, and he just went on and talked and talked, and it was really fascinating.
Well, it was one of those things where it was definitely something where he was like, he's like, I'm not front facing. He was like, I'm not a celebrity. I photograph the celebrities,
Yeah.
I'm not, he'd never done like an interview about his work before, anything like that. And I think for the first like couple minutes, he's like, oh, I don't know about this. And then it's sort of like, it clicked. And
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite interviews we've done so far
Yeah.
because he opens wide up and the intricacies and the detail of what goes into being a photographer. I think that people don't realize, and this goes for all creatives, people see a singer, they're like, oh yeah, they sing well. They don't understand that that's, 15 years of vocal lessons and like sitting in your room, like modulating a vowel for half an hour, figuring out how
Hmm.
to best make it resonate. For actors, they're like, oh yeah, they're just talented. It's like, no, 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 no. It's what we talked about with all the preparation and all the research and all that stuff. And for a photographer, it's a field that neither Ali or I, am super familiar with. So we got to see that and
Hmm.
see everything that goes into, how to compose a shot, what excites him about, because he's every single little snapshot that he takes, every photo, he's telling a story. And I thought that that was just so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. And I think, you made a really good point, Kyle, where, he hadn't done any interviews before and he was really like he didn't think anybody would be interested and he was, a little reticent in the beginning. And then I think what happened is we just had a conversation that happened to be filmed. I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a genuine, or to use your word, Joe, authentic, but it was really just a very real slice of his life. And it's going to be a very compelling episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I think folks are going to like that one.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, all good stuff. It just brings two things to mind. My wife is naturally more creative than me. That doesn't mean that I couldn't get more creative, but she sees things that I don't see. So like she'll take pictures and post them on her Instagram. She'll take a picture of the snow when she's out walking the dog. And it'll be a tree-lined street with the light just right. And I'm like, "Where did you take that picture?" And it's a street I go down every day. And I've literally never viewed it the way she viewed it and then framed it within her camera to take that picture. And
Yeah.
she's spent decades kind of refining that approach and what looks good and trial and error and all of those things. And then I relate that back. to athletics. I had people tell me, man, you're so lucky. I'm like, fuck you. Luck had nothing to do with this, man. So I was lucky that I was born into a
Yeah.
naturally athletic body. I'm 6'3". I'm a naturally big, strong guy. Great. But that doesn't get you very far because everybody else is a naturally big, strong guy in those sports too.
Yeah.
Are you willing to do the weights like I did for 10 years without fail? Are you willing to do the conditioning that I did for 10 years without fail? Are you willing to do video review and video study like I did to get better on my motion and all the things that I did to put myself? Are you willing to move 10 or 1,000 miles away from everybody trying out for 20 spots when 200 guys show up? Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you willing to do all those things? Because luck didn't have anything to do with all of those things that I did. Now, every once in a while, you're like, there was a hockey player named Mario Lemieux, and you may be familiar with him. He played for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was a freak. He smoked regularly, and he was still better than everybody. He didn't lift weights, and he was still better than everybody. But he was Mario Lemieux. That's why he was like, he was a freak. He was an anomaly. He was way out here on the bell curve. And you don't pay attention to guys like that because unless you were touched by God the way he was to be a hockey player, that ain't going to get it done.
Yeah,
And
your generational talent is not like everyone else, and it's the same thing in acting.
yes,
I've had that where people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky, you're so lucky, you're so lucky, you're talented," and I'm like, when you get to the professional level, everybody's talented.
Everybody's talented. Hard work
Everybody's
beats
talented.
talent, and talent
Everybody's got
doesn't work hard.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the price of
and
entry, right? That's just
yeah,
the price of entry.
exactly, exactly. It's the bare minimum. And Ali, what's the
Hard
one that
work
you
beats
always
talent
say?
when talent doesn't work hard. It's Tim
No,
Noetke.
no, but the other one that you always like to say about what talent is.
I don't know. What do I say? I have
Talent
so
is
many.
where.
Oh, no, that's luck is where hard work meets opportunity.
Yep.
There we go.
So you
That's
work
what it is.
hard, you get an opportunity, and you get quote unquote lucky because you're prepared.
Said differently. I've heard that one. And then I've also heard the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yep, I
100%.
say that one too.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's the truth. Like nothing comes easy that's worth having.
No, no, it really doesn't. And I think that I think what's really important, so I won't go into all that, but basically, I had a thing recently about parenting, and I think one of the mistakes parents make is to reward a child's achievements. And
Totally.
I think that that's a real mistake. I never rewarded my child's achievements. I am proud of their achievements and I celebrate them. And I just want to throw out there that Kyle was incredibly modest about his acting career because he's had a number of pretty amazing achievements. Um, but you reward the hard work, you reward the effort. I always told my kids when they were little, they both played sports, and I always said, go out there and play your best. And I would just congratulate them for playing their best. And winning is the cherry on top. Winning is the bonus that you get, which is great, but doing your best, that's where the real, reward lies. And only the individual knows if you're doing your best. So,
Yeah.
and I think that that's a really important lesson to take through life. Because if you truly love what you're doing and you work your ass off, you will be successful. You will. It'll happen.
Yeah.
I call it coach the approach. That's what I told.
There you
That's
go.
because I'm a good head coach and not everybody's a good head coach. And you're seeing that right now in the NFL with a lot of guys that get elevated to the
Yeah.
big chair. It's not easy to be in the big chair. It's very different being in the big chair than it is if you're the offensive coordinator or the tight ends coach or whatever, right? It's the same in acting. Being the gaffer is much different than being the director. They're both important, but they're very different responsibilities that come and very different levels of scrutiny that come depending on which of those chairs you're sitting in. It's no different than being the lead, being Patrick Bateman or being, extra number 2 at Nobu in the scene in the nightclub, right? They're both important. We're not casting aspersions on anybody, but it's a different level of scrutiny that
Yeah.
goes with those things. And if you want to be successful, you'll learn to fall in love with the work, not the result, like Ali just said. Like I was going to ask you, Kyle, did you feel lucky when you were putting on 15 pounds of lean muscle to become Patrick Bateman? Weren't you lucky? Wasn't
No.
that lucky?
No, I felt what I felt was oh my God, I don't know if I can eat another protein shake. I think that's what I felt. I was like I don't know if I don't know if I can do another 50 grams of protein today. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted.
I remember you sitting over your like you had your tofu like
I
hamburger
had this mishmash where I did, it was
thing
tofu, edamame beans, meat,
and
meat
meatless crumbles.
crumbles, and I added like some tater tot for flavor. And the
Yeah.
bowl itself
It was
was like
huge.
about this big, and it
Like a
had,
cake mixing bowl.
yes, it was a cake mixing bowl, and the bowl itself had about 140 grams of protein in it.
Yeah.
And I'd get to the
And you'd be
end of
like,
my
"Oh, I
day,
can't do
and I would just,
it."
mind you, I had that, and I also had like a goblet protein shake that was like a liter protein shake sitting next to it that I would use to sort of clean it down. But that was also super thick and intense, so it was just trying to wash it down with something that was just as heavy. But no, I think, and going back to your point about, you know, the gaffer versus the director and, you know, the lead versus ensemble, it's also different skill sets, and
Different skill sets.
it's different. You know, I tell people all the time, and they don't understand this, in the musical theater world, I am good enough to play leading roles. I am not good enough to be an actor in the ensemble. It is a skill set that I am not a strong enough dancer to do those things. I have friends who have made a career as, you know, performers in the ensemble who are amazing dancers and have a skill set that I'm not even close to. I told my agents once, I was like, there's no point in submitting me for the ensemble of a dance show. I am a net negative in those situations. I am a net negative. And so there's, you know, it's about finding your field that you're really good at, and being the best that you can be in that field. You know, if you're a gaffer and you're a career gaffer, or you're a, you know, you're the boom mic operator on a film set. You know, I know when I'm looking for my next film, I want to hire the best boom mic operator I can get, because
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
make sure that that sound quality is good for when we go into post production.
Yeah, and look, you gotta embrace who you are. Like I always relate things back to athletics because what I did, it's what formed me into the person that I am, and I use those lessons, and they've made me wildly successful in my personal and professional life. But like, I wasn't very good at fly balls. I used to be fast before I hurt my leg, but even then, I wasn't good at catching fly balls. You could hit a baseball at me 200 miles an hour, and I'm not going to move. If it's on the ground, I'm going to get in front of it, knock it down, and throw you out. Like, I'm not afraid of it. But if it's up in the air, I don't have the same skill level as a good outfielder. So I shouldn't be
Mhm.
in the outfield. Do you want to put me at third base and let him hit 200-mile-an-hour balls at me? Fine. I'm good with that. I got aspirin. I can ice after the game. I'm fine. Don't matter to me. Like, and I'm a tough guy. Like, I know what I am. I'm
Yeah.
not touchy feely. I'm not soft. There's nothing wrong or right about that. It's just who I am. And I've embraced who I am. And I've tried to leverage those abilities to make my life as good as possible. And I think if you're smart and you really want a successful life, that's what you'll do. And you'll quit judging yourself against other people and just judge yourself to who you were yesterday and try to get a little bit better today and a little bit better tomorrow and a little bit better the next day. And I call that the compound interest of life. And the compound interest of life adds up very quickly without you knowing it if you just do the work. And that's the
I
hard
love
part,
that.
right? Is the work is
Yeah.
boring. It's not sexy and nobody notices it, but it's where the
Yeah.
magic happens.
Well, I always say, you know, everybody wants to be an actor. Everyone wants to play Division One baseball. Everybody wants those things. But you know, if it was easy, everyone would do it. The fact is it's not easy. You know, and it's those unsexy things. You know, the things that are not glamorous. You know, people want to walk a red carpet. They don't want to, you know, sit in a tiny room with an acting coach going over the dialect of someone from Mississippi in 1927, and going down like syllable by syllable, writing out like the phonetic spelling of things to get the accent right. You know, people want to be, you know, a Division One baseball player, but they don't want to go to the gym every day. They don't want to, you know, like stand in the, you know, in the, you know, the batting cages for hours and be working on that.
I
I'll
push back.
also say I
I'm
would.
pushing back. I'm pushing back. because I think people who are truly passionate about their thing, they
Well,
do
that's what I'm
like those
saying.
things. They
The
do
people
like
who are
those
truly
things.
passionate about
Yeah,
it,
they
yes.
like it. They want to be in the batting cage for hour after hour. They want to sit with that dialogue. And you know what? You yourself have said that you really enjoy some of
No,
those things.
let me rephrase.
Okay.
I love that stuff. I'm saying the general populace of people who are like, oh, I want to do this. The vast
Mm,
majority of them don't want to do the work that gets to that
yeah,
gets to that end product that they want to be at.
right.
And that's the difference between
Because they
people
don't
who
have enough
succeed and who
passion
doesn't.
for it. Because if they
Yes.
truly loved it, they would love all the bits and pieces.
Well, but I'm sure I more than one thing can be true at the same time.
Yes.
But Allie, like from an author's perspective, how many authors have you talked to that are struggling, but you've discovered in your conversations with them that the struggle is coming from more analysis paralysis than the actual writing itself? Do you find that a lot?
No, no, I don't think we have found that so much. I think people do hit a little bit of writer's block, but then they just take a break and go do something else. They go for a walk or they, whatever it is they do. And then they come back to it. And I don't think I've, I don't recall any of the authors we've spoken to having that. I know I certainly don't. Poor Kyle, I made him listen this morning. I'd written like 2 pages of stuff when I promised him that I would read his most recent screenplay, which he just finished and was so excited about. You got to read this. I just finished it. It's so good. I'm so excited. And I was like, I'm going to read it first thing in the morning. And I kept trying to read it. And I was like, I have this idea I need to get down. And so then he calls and like, I was like, yeah, so I haven't read your screenplay, but listen to what I wrote. So,
But I'll say I have that with the analysis paralysis.
do
I
you?
I had well, I mean, we had with this most recent screenplay that you were just talking about.
Hmm.
I wrote the first draft of this a couple years ago, and was super excited about it. And then I dusted it off, did a couple rewrites, and after my first film got made, I knew that this was the next one I wanted to make. And I did a couple tinkering around the edges and sort of sent it around, and it didn't get the same positive feedback as my first script got. And I was like, well, I don't get that. And people had questions, and I was like, those questions are stupid. Thinking that I know all the answers, obviously. And I'm driving back up to New York after being out of town on contracts on and off for 8 months, driving back to New York City for the first time in 8 months to go back home. And on my drive up, I called you.
Hmm.
I called Allie, and I went, it doesn't work, does it?
And
I
I
was like,
said, no, I've been saying that.
and I was like, it absolutely doesn't work. And I have spent the last like 3 weeks or so sitting with it and being like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. What do I have to do? There was a point about a week ago where I went, I think I have to scrap this one. I was like, I know that I already have like, I've talked with people. I've got
And what did I
interest from
say?
like
And what did I
decently
say?
big named like actors who are interested in the roles, and like talked with my like producers and like my team that I like working with. And you said you don't need to scrap it. It needs work. And I was like, but I don't understand how to fix it. And so
And
I
I
had that
said,
analysis
let's talk about
paralysis.
it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was analysis paralysis. You were just caught in the minutia and you were too close to it.
Yeah. I
Um,
I I
and
knew
we
it
talked
needed
it
to be
out and,
fixed, but
and
I didn't
came
know
up
how to
with
fix it.
hmm.
Yeah.
I think that
And
it
then we
is
did.
analysis paralysis.
Oh, is
Just
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
my official judgment is that's analysis paralysis for
your
what it's worth.
diagnosis on it. Yeah, I
Okay.
love that. I would agree. I would agree. I very much sat with it and was just like, I don't know what to do. I know that it needs something, but I don't know how to save it. I felt like a doctor performing a surgery and like watching my patient bleeding out on the table and like not knowing how to fix it. And then suddenly the sutures came in, and I was like, okay, here we go. Let's patch this up, and it'll be better than it was before.
Well, and that's really hard in the creative fields, right? Because there is no right or wrong answer. You're trying to develop an idea and express that idea in a way that is true to your original thought or emotion and have it resonate with people. And that can be a very fine line to walk. Cats, the movie, is a good example, right? So they took a Broadway production, which was wildly successful. What did Cats run for? 30 years, something like that?
A ridiculous amount of time. It's one of the
Yeah.
longest running Broadway shows ever.
and it's widely panned as one of the worst movies ever made.
Mm.
Yes.
And it was somebody's interpretation that didn't resonate with their audience. And who knew? Like you would think, God, it'd be hard to screw up Cats, and yet
Yeah.
from a commercial perspective, they did. I'm very hesitant
Yeah.
to say, hey, you did a bad job because I don't know what they were going for. I don't know what they
Yeah.
were trying to get done. It's especially in creative fields. I don't know. Right. And that's got to be really hard because there is no, like, if I played baseball, if I score more runs than you do, I win. I know the rules. Like, the rest of it doesn't, I can walk as many guys or make as many errors. It doesn't matter. It's the runs on the board at the end of the game. That's how you judge success or failure. Now, I know as a baseball player that if you don't walk batters and you don't make errors, you have a much higher chance of winding up with more runs than the other team. So again, like Ali talked about, the approach is what enables the result. So we focus on the approach. So along those lines, what have either of you learned anything from your guests that you've incorporated into your approaches after learning it from your guests on your podcast?
Ooh, I I definitely I learned so much in chatting with Sam Henderson, our filmmaker who's on the Oscar shortlist. Just as someone who, when we recorded that episode, I was about 2 months after writing and directing my first short film. And that was a world that I was not familiar with, involved in at all. It was genuine. I never intended on making the film that I'd written. It was just something that I wrote because I like writing screenplays, and it's a medium that I enjoy. But I never specifically with that one, I never planned on making that one. And then it just came around where the funding came in, and it became something that just happened. And one day I was on set, and just sitting and hearing someone who is
It just
like,
happened magically.
no, we don't need to get into the weeds and the details of like all of the.
That's
Ugh.
how, but Kyle, that's how it
Yeah.
feels though, doesn't it? Because you
Yeah.
forget the grind. All of a sudden you get yes, or you get the green light, and it feels like all of a sudden I was successful, and you forget
Right.
the years of toil and heartache and tearing your hair out, and 2 o'clock in the
Yes.
morning, waking up in your bed, writing shit on a notepad, and
Yeah,
all the other
and
stuff that went into it.
having the moments where 3 weeks before the shoot we thought we were gonna have to cancel because we didn't know if our location was actually gonna come through or if they were gonna pull out last minute on us. Things like that. Having to cast the movie off of like thousands of submissions and narrow that down to like 4 people we wanted to cast. But just sitting there with Sam, someone who is by all accounts, one of the top people in that space of short filmmaking right now, especially this year. Just the intricacies of how he talked about running a set, how he went about casting, specifically knowing that like you can the biggest hurdle to trying to get someone who is like a known name and like a famous person. He has his film stars Jennifer Lewis, who's a very famous actress who from Abbott Elementary and The Princess and the Frog and a bunch of things. And he was like, yeah, we just reached out. We sent her the script, and she liked it. And I was like, whoa. I was like, it's that easy to get some, because for a short film with like no Hollywood backing, no whatever, you just reach out, and if they like the script, then maybe they'll sign on. So I definitely learned a lot from just his approach of like taking the swing, and being willing to take a shot in the dark.
I love that. Do you know how I got my wife to marry me?
How?
I asked her.
There we go. There we go. Oh, I love that.
And she said, I said yes. I'm like, let's do this as quick as possible. She's gonna wise up here pretty soon.
he said no
Before she
takebacks,
changes
no
her mind.
takebacks.
Exactly. How about you, Ali? Is there anything you've learned to incorporate? And there's no right or wrong answer. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've learned a ton. I don't know, Kyle, what do you think? Do you think I've incorporated anything that I've learned? I'm not sure that I have.
Um, I think that we did an interview where we found with another author where we found that your processes were so polar opposite
So
in the
polar
sense
opposite. Yeah.
and I think in reading some of your newer drafts, I think you've you've allowed some of the things, because your writing is very much about world building and understanding where we are, and building. You paint a picture in your writing, and
Hmm.
this other author is very much about like, okay, let's get to what's happening.
Mm.
Well, the
Let's
dialogue,
just
yeah, all about the
let's get to the
dialogue.
dialogue. Let's get
But
to the
the
point.
thing is, I had a lot of the dialogue. I mean, I have dialogue as well. It's just for me, it's okay. Let's do, but maybe you're right. Maybe I'm leaning more into it. Um,
I don't think that you're getting away from what you're about. You're painting the image
no,
for
I'm just
everyone,
adding
but
it in.
I
I
think
am
that
trying to
you're
add more.
incorporating and
Yeah, a little more
adding in
dialogue.
addition, as opposed to
Yeah,
it's supplementary as opposed to, regressive.
yeah, yeah. The one thing that I think I've really taken from a lot of our guests, and it's not a new lesson, but it's a reinforcement of something I'm trying to do, just as you are with trying out for the band, Joe, is leaning into discomfort, leaning
Mm.
into those things.
Hmm.
So the manuscript that I'm currently working on is kind of a little bit of a spicy romance with a hint of suspense. And it has been very awkward and difficult for me to put in some of the racier scenes because I keep thinking about what people are going to think when they read them. I'm like, do I read? Okay. And in talking, think this is one of the things that I've learned is that I can't be worried about that. I just can't be worried about that. I need to just focus on whatever is coming out of my brain into my fingertips and onto the paper and not worry about that. And I think that's a common theme that resonates with a lot of the creatives that we've talked to is they're not worried about um, the audience per se. I mean, they're aware of the audience and they want to make sure that they're providing something that, is not Cats the movie. Um, but at the same time, they're more focused on their own process, on their own way of doing things. And it's sort of like the cherry on top for winning. And so I feel like talking with people and seeing them implement that is giving me permission to do that as well. So I'm able to just write these things and I kind of laugh at it now. It's like, okay, well, someone's going to say something about that one. My book club's going to say something about that one. Um, but I think that would be what I have learned is just focus on what I want to do and not worry. And I never did before, like I never have with other stuff. It's just specifically with this. And so that's been liberating.
Nice. Yeah, like that's growth, right? That's growth as a person is expanding your horizons, expanding your thoughts and saying, "Hey, I want to try this, so I'm going to try it. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'll accept whatever the outcomes are and I'll learn from them."
Yeah,
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, would you do anything different as you started the podcast? Would you make any changes when you first got going?
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. I would have looked at the camera more.
Yes, there's
Because I tend to look
definitely.
down when I think sometimes I'm looking down and I'm like thinking about things and it's just weird. I think both you and I did that. We
Mhm.
both did that, Kyle, and we
Yeah.
didn't necessarily look at the camera. And in looking back at the episodes, it's like, okay, well, let's look at the camera
Kyle,
instead
that's
of
got to
like
be hard
around
for you
here,
because, like,
around here.
yeah, Kyle, you as an actor, like, trained not to break the
The
fourth wall,
whole
right?
point is not to look at the camera. It's like
Exactly.
it's the first rule on a film set, and it's I jokingly, when I directed my film, I had a lot of I had a lot of people in it who were theater actors who'd never done any film, specifically for like a big like crowd scene that we were doing, and I jokingly told them just I was like, just don't look at the camera and it'll be fine. I was like, it'll be fine if you don't look at the camera. So now doing the opposite where I'm like actively like making sure that I am looking at the camera. Even when I film like a taped audition for something, it's like you don't look at the camera, you look just off of the camera so that they can still see your eyes and see your emotion, but it's not like you're like staring a hole into the casting director's like
Right.
soul,
Right.
It's
Yeah.
nobody wants that. No one wants to feel like they're being judged while they're watching you act.
No, but
So
doing the podcast, people want to have a
But
connection.
doing the
They want
podcast, they
to.
want to
So I
have
think
that.
that's,
So,
do you think there's anything else we would change? Is there anything you would change?
um, I I really think that obviously there was, technical things and like us,
Yeah.
figuring out the flow of things. I would have edited the first couple episodes a little more cleanly. I realized as I went on through, because I do the post production. Allie does all the scheduling, and then I edit the videos and upload them and do the clips and things like that. And I would have edited the first couple episodes a little tighter, which is what I started doing later, cutting some air, cutting, uh, any like awkward moments, things like that. But yeah, I think that I think that for the most part, I'm really happy with how season one turned out, and now that we've got
Hmm.
season two, dropping every week, I think that I think it's in a really good place, and I'm
Hmm.
excited for people to continue to find the show, and for our older viewers to come back for the new season and see what we've got cooking up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just very much, it's a very natural flow, free form conversation, just like this show is. And it's, it's, I don't know, it's like having, I can't remember what the tagline was you came up with, something about like, you know, it's actors saying something when the cameras are off and the mics are on or something like that. I can't remember how you worded it, but basically it's just an informal conversation between us and the guest. And
Yeah, we're just chatting.
we're just chatting, we're just having a conversation and asking questions that pop up as we go. And it's a very free form kind of thing. It's very much like the format for this, really. I really wasn't being, I wasn't being facetious when I was like, I enjoyed that episode of, so what's your
It
process when
very
you were
much
talking with
was.
Kyle about his acting process. That was very much what our show is. That's like, oh, here's someone, I don't know anything about what you do. Let me ask you some questions because I really am interested in how you go about that. And that really is what our show is.
That's awesome. And yeah, that's like, I love learning from people. I got to learn so much from Kyle, from you when you were on, from all of our guests. I love it. So in your guys' mind, what does success look like for So What's Your Process? What is in your mind,
Ooh.
X, Y, or Z would happen and that would feel like success to you?
Um, I I would love to get to the point where we've got we've got people who enjoy the show so much that they're tagging their favorite celebrities, asking them to come onto the show. That would be very cool. There's a lot of different angles. Obviously we could say we want to get to the point where we have X number of average listeners on a month. We've got XYZ subscribers, blah, 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 blah. I just want it to be something where people enjoy it so much that they want to see people that they're interested in come on, because they feel like they'll learn something new about that person.
Mhm.
How about you, Allie?
Well, the first thing that sprung to mind when you said it, although I must say I kind of like Kyle's answer, the first thing that sprung to my mind is I would love to get to a point where people are interacting with our videos and making comments about them and asking even follow-up questions or just engaging in a very active way with some of the content. I would love that. I would love that that sort of feedback loop.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's interesting because we've kind of accidentally kind of seen our growth go the way it's going, which is great, but not at all what I care about. Like, I don't care. Like, we get approached regularly about, hey, I've seen your channel and we could get you 2 million subscribers and blah, 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 blah. And I literally yesterday told someone, please stop harassing me with these emails. I'm not interested at all in what you're trying to sell me. Not for a
Hmm.
second. I tend to align with where Allie's at. I want to know that we're impacting people's lives in a positive way. That's what
Yeah.
is important to me. And that can be a wide variety of things like, hey, I decided to quit my job as X and go to Y because I've wanted to do Y my whole life and I didn't have the guts to do it until I heard the people on your show talk about it. Or I now do this that I've dreamed about doing since I was a kid and I'm horrible at it, but I'm loving it and I'm getting better. That type of feedback is gold to me. That's exactly what
Yeah.
we're looking for from our podcast. For what it's
And
worth, that's like what
and
success is
it's
to me.
so funny that you say that because I've talked for years about that's exactly why what I see as success as an actor.
Mm,
I always say that if I can do a show and impact somebody's life in some way, shape, or form, then that is a successful run for me. Even if it's one person whose life has been altered in some way for the better, for seeing that show, for seeing my performance, I consider that an absolute win.
yeah, that's awesome. And don't get me wrong, like I'm a capitalist. I love money as much as or more than the next person. And if I can speak or I can do classes or I can do things that truly provide a benefit to people and also provide me an income, great. I'm not against that in any way, shape, or form, but it's not what motivates me. It's not what I'm trying to accomplish. Um, I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. I love that show and the
Love that
message.
Yes,
show.
love that
Absolutely.
Man,
show.
that
We watched
show.
that show together.
We
Yeah.
did. We
Yeah.
did.
And one of my favorite lines in there is when he's talking to Trent Crimm from The Independent, and he says, "Would you write for free?" And he says, "No." And he says, "Would you coach for free?" He says, "Yeah, I would."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes, I
Yep.
would.
I know exactly that line. Yep.
I remember that vividly, actually.
Yep. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we talked about it, didn't we?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
both
we
decided
did.
we would do what we do for free as well.
Yeah, we literally paused it and talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we
Yes.
do that kind of stuff actually. We will watch something together and we'll literally like stop and like have a discussion about
Like
something.
debrief
Deep,
the
Oh,
idea that
yeah.
it came
brief
up.
dive
Yeah.
right into that topic. Yep.
I love those things. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is the Western Unforgiven by Clint Eastwood that Clint Eastwood
Oh,
directed.
yeah.
And I love that for a couple of reasons. One, he tells such a vivid story with such little dialogue. It's
Yeah.
brilliant the way he does that. And then two, I always challenge people, watch that movie and tell me who the good guy and the bad guy are. Just
Right.
do it.
I
Hmm.
love that line was like taking a man is no small something or other, like is no small task or I can't remember the exact words, but it was
Yep.
just like that
Taking
line really hit
I
me.
know it. Taking a life is a hell of a thing. Taking
A
away all
hell of
he's
a
got
thing.
on all
Yes.
he's ever gonna have.
Yeah. And all he's
Yep.
ever gonna have.
Yep.
Yes.
And the
Oh,
kid can't take it. He's take another drink, kid. Oh, it's one of my favorite movie scenes
hmm.
ever. Like that's such
Yeah.
a powerful scene.
So powerful.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not a lot of dialogue. In fact, most of that scene is them standing waiting for the girl to ride up on the horse.
Hmm.
Like you can tell it's building to that final scene in the saloon, but it's just brilliant the way that he puts that together. And yeah, I love all those things. Like in Ted Lasso, there's when he talks to Jamie Tart and says, "Would you rather be a lion or a panda?" When his girlfriend's going to the shoot, and he says, "I'm just me, coach. Why would I want to be anything else?" And Ted says, "I don't think you understand how emotionally healthy that response actually is."
I love that line. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Which,
That's
you
your
know,
book, Allie. It's your
it
book
is.
in one line.
You know what? That is my book in one line. That is my book in one line. Thanks for that.
Let's
Yeah.
get Jason
Yeah.
Sudeikis on the show. All right, let's do
Oh,
it.
yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Right after I'm not going to say it because I always say it wrong.
What? Yeah,
Killer Cross guy?
Killer Cross, the
Yeah.
wrestler. Yeah.
Kevin, what
Kevin
is his?
Kasar, aka
Kevin
Killer Cross,
Kasar.
aka Karrion Cross, is
Yes.
one of our. We've talked about our dream guests, and one of my dream guests is a professional wrestler who I think is just fascinating.
I love that. I actually met a couple of professional wrestlers in real life. Interesting guys, super interesting guys.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting middle ground between, that sports world and that theatrical performance world. It's a fascinating line there.
Yeah, it might be a scripted outcome, but those guys take a beating and there's so much improvisation.
Hmm.
And like it's a 40-minute match. You've got to improv for 40 minutes. It's wild what they do,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's magic. I always tell my actor friends, I'm very big into professional wrestling and my actor friends are like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "It's just a Broadway show, but instead of singing, it's big muscular men doing crazy acrobatic athletics."
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, "Oh, that actually doesn't sound." I was like, "No, it's great. It's awesome."
Yes, I love it. And look, there's all sorts of different versions of entertainment out there. Again, that's why it's important not to be judgmental because one of them resonates with you and one of them doesn't. It doesn't make you better or worse. It just means that you're receiving it differently than other people do. And there's nothing right or wrong about that.
100%.
You just got to be comfortable with who you are. So, yeah, look, Kyle, this Allie knows this, but you don't. So what I try to do, because we cover a ton of territory and it's been an awesome conversation. And we'll talk one more time about your podcast before we wrap up here. But I don't want to miss anything good that we haven't talked about because I wasn't smart enough to ask the right questions. So, is there anything we haven't talked about yet? Is there any topics we haven't talked about yet, or anything you feel strongly about that you want to make sure we get out in front of the audience while we're together? The floor is yours to say whatever or talk about whatever topic you feel strongly about. And if there's nothing, that's okay too. I just don't want to miss an opportunity because I wasn't smart enough to ask good questions.
Anything that I'm passionate about, anything. Let's talk about municipal tax rate. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I don't know. Allie, thoughts? Anything?
Well, the one thing that I really think is important, and it's been a through line in this conversation, it's a through line in my book, it's a through line in our podcast, which is whatever you watching or listening wants to do, just go for it. The worst case scenario is not that you won't succeed. The worst case scenario is that it'll be 10 years down the line and you'll be exactly where you are now, still miserable and wishing you had. Don't be a shoulda, coulda, woulda person. Just go for it. If someone had said to me a year or two ago, you're going to be doing a podcast, you're going to be doing interviews on a book you wrote, you're going to be doing these, I do book rec shorts. I have a YouTube station. If someone had said, you're going to have a YouTube station, I would have laughed in their face. I'm like, there's no way I'm putting myself out there like that. I'm just not doing it. But I did it. And honestly, I am just like everybody else. I'm just a person, just like everyone is. We're all the same. And if one person can do it, then you can too. And I really feel like that's one thing that it's important to drive home and really just embrace at a deep level.
Yeah. And I'll just add on to that. As far as we know, we only get one of these lives, So why would you spend your time doing stuff that doesn't make your heart sing? That's how I feel. And I try every single day to do things that make my heart sing.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I just can't stress enough how much I agree with everything that both Ali and Kyle just said. So that is if you don't know and you have anxiety, you have depression, you have fear, that's what's causing it, is the lack of action. Action is always the cure for the three things I just listed. It is the unknown that you're fearing. And the only way you get through the unknown is to take your shots, to take your chances. And let me spoil it for you. It's not always going to go the way you want it to. You're not always going to get the result that you want to. In fact, you might get terrible results the first time you try it. And you might get a little less terrible results the second time you try it. Just how you learn to walk. You don't remember it, but you were terrible at walking when you first tried. And now you're an experienced walker. But you didn't give up. You kept doing it until you got good at it. And it's the only way you're going to get to where you want to be. So the podcast is So What's Your Process, right?
Yep.
Yep, that's right.
Episodes drop every Thursday at 4 p.m. on YouTube. Our YouTube handle is So What's Your Process. Our Instagram page is So What's Your Process. And we post stuff there. First episode of season 2 was January 29th. And we've got an 8-season episode. Then we'll take another little break.
Yeah. And if you don't want to watch the video, you can listen to the podcast on every audio streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, Amazon Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find it at So What's Your Process.
Love it. And for the listeners, if you don't want to go search for that, I'm sure I would say Ali and Kyle, but I know it's going to be Kyle. Will send us the links and those will be in the show notes down below. So you have to go scroll down to the bottom of the episode, any of those links will take you to their YouTube channel, to their Instagram page, to the audio podcast, so you can go check it out.
Yeah.
And look, even let's just say, and I'm trying to be as stereotypical as possible here. Let's say you're an accountant or a tax attorney, or you do something that is mind-numbingly boring and not creative. There's a ton of value in thinking differently. And so I would encourage you, even if you're not in one of these fields, or even if you're not, as you sit here right now, interested in a creative field, go watch a couple of episodes and see how people think, see the approach that they take, see the thought process that goes into what they do. It might pop something loose, and you might wind up doing something or experiencing something that you love simply because you did something different and took a shot. So I want to encourage everybody to go check it out. Allie, thank you for coming back onto the channel. Kyle, great to meet you. Your mom undersold you if possible, and she talked very highly of you before you came on. I just really appreciate it. Congratulations on your success. And I hope you remember us, because as you move through and you're doing these films and you're writing and directing, we'd love to have you back on to talk about what you're working on, talk about what you're learning through those processes. And we're adding you to our follow-up list. So hopefully you don't big league us when you get big and famous. And
Never that, Joe. Oh, I'd be happy to come back anytime. This has been a blast.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, both. Really appreciate it. And again, we will absolutely talk in the future. Listeners, don't forget, go down and check their podcasts out. So what's your process? Check it out. It's good stuff. Allie, Kyle, thanks again.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Joe.
And thanks to everybody for listening.
Yeah. Guys, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh,
And I'll be the
yeah.
one who sends that follow-up link. I handle all the logistics. Kyle handles the editing and the video stuff. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
All right. I'll
Um,
take my foot out of my mouth. I just hope we just want to get links so that we can make sure we get people over to your channel that see your
Absolutely.
episode.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad you which episodes did you watch?
I watched one with an actor, and I can't remember the name. And then I watched, what did she call herself? A pole athlete, I think she called herself.
Yeah. Yes, Makita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She was
Yeah, those are the
great.
two that I watched.
Love Makita.
Yeah, those were fun episodes.
Those
Yeah.
were fun episodes. Yeah. That might have been Dan Maldonado's maybe.
It might have been, or it might have been Ellis.
It was
Oh, it
Ellis.
could have been Ellis.
That was
Could
it.
have been
Ellis,
Ellis.
yeah.
Ellis. It was
Yeah.
Ellis. Yep.
Yeah, Ellis.
Yeah.
Ellis is one of my very, very good friends. He was actually just over at my apartment a couple days ago. Yeah,
Nice.
good buddy of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I learned a whole lot about you today too. So thanks for sharing. You know,
Yeah,
Division
yeah,
One.
you're fascinating.
Division One baseball cleanup, and yeah, lead singer in a band, and what else
Soon
did
to
you
be.
say?
Soon to be.
Soon to be.
Look at that.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually very, very cool stuff. So
Are there any, I'm actually super curious. Are there any fields of things that like you're interested in doing that you haven't done yet? Any other, like I know that the being a singer is like a new venture. Are there other things that you're interested in?
You know, I don't know that I would say I haven't done them. I haven't pursued things. Like, I think in a perfect world, I would be a speaker and a teacher. Like, I think that's where I am the happiest and get the most energy. Like, let's just say that someone came and said, Joe, here's $100 million. You can do whatever you want. I would probably go to a college and say, hey, I'll coach your hockey team for free.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be the best coach you've ever had in your life.
hockey, huh?
I have a soft spot for coaching hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And that sport still, it's the one that's evolved the least from when I was a kid. Like, professional baseball has gotten so into the money, and I'm not a huge, I don't want to be involved in the football world.
Yeah.
But from a
Well,
sporting
those sports have
perspective,
developed in general too. I mean, like
Yeah.
you even see, like I mean, you know, we saw with what's his name, who used to Pete Carroll. I mean, like the game like passed him by, and he used to be amazing 15 years ago as a coach, and now he's just horrible for the Raiders.
yeah,
You
it's
know?
funny. I went to a coaching seminar when I was in New Hampshire, and they had a guy there that had played in the NHL for about 15 years. And I loved his approach. He said, look, we all wind up playing men's league. That's where we all wind up. Doesn't matter who you are. You just take a different path to get there. He said, I played in the NHL for 15 years. Now I'm not good enough to do anything but go out and tool around every Sunday night and then sit in the locker room and drink beers with my buddies afterwards. That's where we all wind up. So
Yeah.
don't think you're anything special, because that's where you're going to wind up too. And it was such a great perspective. Like,
Wow.
don't lionize these people you see, because they're just people with lives and problems and challenges, and they happen to be really good on 2/4 inch pieces of steel chasing a puck around for a little period of their
Yeah.
life, and then they're not, right? But like the things we do, we get to do these things for a long time, because they don't depend on like our physical acuity. It's such a short lifespan as a professional athlete. If you're a writer, if you're an actor, if you're a producer, if you're in a creative field, you can continue to evolve and do those things. And so that's why I think about like teaching or speaking or coaching, somewhere down the road. That I'd like that to be probably my primary role and responsibility. But for now, I'm selling groceries in Chicago, and that's taking up most of my time. So
I love that.
yeah.
That's
I
really,
feel
really
like I should
cool.
have said that would be success to be still doing the podcast in 20 years.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
look again, there's no right or wrong answers, That's why I
Hmm.
love the podcast, is you get to say whatever you think, and who knows? Like I was talking about American Beauty. Like I remember the first time I watched that movie, I was like, ugh, what was that all about? And then
Yeah,
in my 40s, it struck
yeah.
very
Well,
differently with me.
and there's something to be said for age appropriateness of materials, which has nothing to do with sort of what people tend to think it has something to do with. It really does have to do with speaking to a certain set of experiences in life. But also there's a phrase, for books, because I'm an avid reader, always have been, but you never read the same book twice,
Mm,
Mhm.
right? So you can reread the same books. I tend to reread the same books over and over, my favorites. But you are a different person and you have had different life experiences. So you will view that book through a different lens and it'll speak to you in a different way. And I have reread books multiple times and found I just reread, just like a few weeks ago, I reread The Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, wow, I never noticed the nature of duality in that. Like,
mm,
I've read that. How many times have I read that book, Kyle? What?
So many times.
Dozens? I
An
don't know.
unreal amount of times.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's my favorite book. And I was like, I've never noticed the theme of duality in it. Like I never really, it just hit me like a two by four. And so it's the same with American Beauty. Maybe or maybe not it was age appropriate, or maybe you just weren't, you know, you hadn't had the life experiences that allowed you to appreciate what they were trying to communicate.
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
it's
Yeah.
not for me in this moment thing. I just
Hmm.
saw a movie that a lot of like the film people in the world are like, "Oh, this is one of the best movies of the year. It's amazing." And it's about a woman who's having a mental breakdown caused by postpartum depression. And I walked out of that movie and I went, that was not for me in this moment. I did not enjoy that. But I totally understand why people think that that is an amazing film. It was not for me. It was not for me in this moment.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a really kind way to say that, Kyle.
But I mean, that kind of goes back to, I tend not to criticize uh, athletes that don't perform well on a big stage, because like some days you just don't have it. Like
Yeah.
even if it's the big stage and you've done all the work and you've done all the preparation, some days it's just not your day, you know?
And it's okay not to be fabulous every day.
That's right. I've heard that
There we
somewhere.
go. Full circle.
Oh, well, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. We will get you, I think, well, James is on. I don't know if he's still muted or not. I think it's the first or second week of February we're airing this, but we'll get you the air date. And then Allie knows this. We give you the whole episode. So you can do whatever you want with it. You can repost it wherever you want. You can cut it up however you want. I know some people are really kind of protective of IP. We're the exact opposite. We want you to do anything you can to get it out there and drive more people both to our channel and to your channel, because I think we're both doing really good things that can help people, and that's the whole point of it, right? So
Yeah. Yeah,
Love
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Love that. Yep.
I'll definitely have some good clips to pull, I'm sure, for putting out on socials and promoting.
love it. Love it. All right. Well, I'm going to do your intro and outro, so James has it all in one spot. But
Okay.
really appreciate you guys coming on. And like I said, stay in touch, because I really enjoy our conversations, and we will do this again somewhere down the road.
Amazing.
Sounds great. Sounds
Thanks,
great. I'll
Joe.
look forward to
Thanks
watching
again.
all your future episodes.
Well,
with
appreciate
Kyle
it.
there. Yeah. All
We
right.
appreciate it. All
Have a
right,
good
guys.
one.
All right.
Have a good
All
We'll
night.
right.
see you.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay, guys, there you go. So, super good interview. It was great to have Kyle kind of walk us through his approach as an actor and how he prepares for parts, how he prepares for roles. He's also writing scripts, he's producing. Him and Allie are doing the podcast together. They said, as mother and son, not really any friction in the dynamic, and their approaches are very different, but they mesh very well together. They're in their second season now. So again, their podcast is called So What's Your Process? We'll have links to their Instagram, to their YouTube, to their audio podcast down in the show notes. So make sure you go over and check those out. James puts it up over here every day, but you can get to all our social media accounts through those links that James posts over there. We've got all of our podcast episodes on our website, saltygingertalk.com. On that website, you can also find links to all of our social media accounts. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us if you're able to do that. We're going to keep having awesome interviews like this one. We're going to keep having great people on that share their thoughts and ideas. We're going to give you episodes that talk about specific topics and give you real world tips that you can incorporate into your life right now to start living the life that you want and pursuing the things that are important to you. We're also starting live streams on every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in to our live streams on Thursdays. So that's it for today. We're going to have another awesome episode tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. So make sure you check it out. We'll see you there.